1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is! He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
Reading from the notes section of my iPhone. Super burrito with ground beef, green gravy, pint size of green gravy. End of note. Solo screening. Blingo is your chance to win hand-selected bling from Ides Jewelers. Try your luck tonight. Sketch idea. Couples counseling. A person seeks counseling, and it turns out that it's a couple counseling them. 28,500 square feet. Root beer chicken wings. Don't talk about this on the podcast again. Simon screening. Jill, 5. Brad Fondrick, 2. Danny Halleck, 2. Peyton, 2. Apple password. Hint doesn't work. Giving Hearts Day idea for 2019. I interview a charity and podcast it. 7005. 7006. 7106. 10005. Buy an entree, get one half off.
Jesus.
Rhubarb wine. Fargo t-shirts. Buy more nails. New note. No additional text. New note. No additional text. New note. No additional text. Little Bits Pumpkin Patch. 2 event. Online. $240. Square. $95. Cash. No additional entries. 75 inches tall. South wall. 44.5. East wall. 63. North wall. 411.5. When the FBI, at one point, I have to imagine they're going to arrest me in the middle of the night for something. I don't know what yet. I haven't done anything worthy of it, but I probably will at one point in my life. Or be involved with someone who is, and so I'm taken in for his witness. But when they go through the notes on my phone, they're going to think that I'm some sort of either genius or a boring, bland fellow. Do you keep notes on your iPhone?
I do, yeah.
Do you put important stuff in there or just reminders?
It's reminders, but then I don't have any system to remind me to look at my notes. So it's tough to go by. Otherwise, I save practical things like the hashtags we use on Instagram for JJ Meets World.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those, so I just copy paste those, things like that. So I try to use it for more utility. The other thing I would use it for is I love grocery lists because of the check mark option you can do.
I love grocery lists on a piece of paper. I'm glad you brought that up because my favorite promotional item, if you were going to tempt me with something to remind me of a business that you offer, a service, perhaps a bank you'd like me to put some money into, is when you give me what I would consider a grocery list sized Post-it note. So it's longer. It's not wide, but it's long. And it has a magnet on the back of it so I can keep it on the fridge. I can write the things I need, and then when it's time to get groceries, I just peel it off and take it with me.
Do you pay much attention to the advent of smart, smart
the
Internet of Things? So more and more appliances have internet connectivity now, including refrigerators. The idea being that the refrigerator could be the thing that generates your grocery list for you because it knows that you're out of the thing that you just took out of it.
Yeah, but I don't need robots telling me I've had enough French onion dip for the week, which is what I think we'd end up with. The robots finally telling you, like, you no longer need butter. So please use a low-fat option, olive oil. What about, like, the opportunities when you sneak in and you eat something you're not supposed to eat, and then the appliance tattles on you to your loved one. It's like, what happened to the cupcakes? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, would you... See, I would like a smart fridge, though, that I could say, hey, could you keep this quadrant of the fridge at this particular temperature?
What do you need that's cool at different levels?
I don't know. I've never had the option before, JJ. So that's what I'm saying is I need options.
You
so
need
I can
to
understand.
We've got a fridge and then we've got a freezer. Either something is frozen or it's cool.
Yeah, but let's say you want to keep your apples crisp, but you also don't want maybe a certain. Let's say you put some ice cream in there, right?
In the fridge.
Like you want a certain temperature to keep it at ice cream, but not a freezer because that's going to put freezer burn and extra crystals on it. And if the fridge
Are you listening to yourself? These are the ramblings of a crazy man. Ice cream goes in the freezer. You can turn down the freezer, and if you allow your ice cream to sit in there long enough where it gets ice crystals on it and freezer burn, which is also known as the protective ice.
You're thinking about ice cream that you get at a grocery store. I'm talking about soft serve from Dairy Queen. So like if you go out and get
and you decide you got too much.
You get too much and you're like, you know what, I'm going to save some of this for later. You put it in the fridge and it's going to get melty, and you put it in the freezer and it's not going to taste anything.
So
like
it's
soft serve.
Kenmore's job now to teach you portion control.
It's not. Does Kenmore make refrigerators?
They make wonderful refrigerators.
Then yeah, it is up to them.
This podcast is not brought to you by Kenmore, but they have quality products, and maybe they would like to sponsor this podcast.
Yeah, I would.
I'm also open to Frigidaire.
Oh yeah,
LG makes a quality home appliance as well.
If you are
Whirlpool,
someone who has this thing called money, we're totally open to you sponsoring this podcast.
Right. Let's get back to this. So you buy an ice cream product, which is a frozen cream. Ice is in the title.
Yeah.
And you want a section of your refrigerator that's cold enough where it's going to really slow down the melting process, but the nature of a refrigerator is that it won't freeze something. If it is freezing something, the refrigerator is not operating correctly.
What I want is the ability to store soft serve ice cream at a temperature that it remains as if the soft serve had just came out of the spigot at the store.
It sounds to me like you want a separate device. This should not be in your refrigerator or your freezer. This is a separate countertop device.
Why can't it be like a small portion of the inside? Like you've got a meat and cheese drawer, you've got a crisper drawer. Can't you have a soft serve ice cream drawer?
No.
I don't understand why you're so dead set against this.
Because at one point you're going to say, you know what? I'm going to put X in there because I don't constantly have soft serve.
Do you like soft serve ice cream though?
I do.
You do.
And if I liked it enough, I would buy a soft serve machine.
But what if you were like, listen, I think this is going to be a 2-cone weekend, and I don't have enough gas to go to McDonald's twice. Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy 2 twist cones, which they don't make anymore, I think, at McDonald's.
Twist cones are hard to find.
It's pretty much just vanilla now, which is bullshit, if you ask me. I don't understand, at what point did McDonald's go, yeah, let's get rid of chocolate and vanilla. Let's just do vanilla.
It's cost saving.
But that seems so... Is it really that much cost saving?
I have no idea.
Oh, man, we got...
And how do you make that decision? Like, what are people going to want more, vanilla or chocolate?
Yeah, I just think that if you're not offering if you're going to offer only one, I'd suggest offering a twist cone.
You at one point wrote a great sketch about how a fast food employee pondered race relations when making a twist cone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was when we used to have the United Nations Musical Comedy Hour.
I loved that show.
I do love that show, too.
The show was so good.
We'll have to incorporate some things from that.
Yeah.
Bring some things back.
Oh,
back in the day.
So good. So many good things.
That was when, that was a time when podcasting really was not a thing. I mean, there were podcasts out there, but to us, the only way we could have a show was to be on a low-power local college station, which is what we did. So it's kind of crazy how things have changed. That was 2003?
Mm-hmm. Do you remember one of the episodes? Well, I think several of the episodes, we just played the game Outburst, and we would hand it around. That was really riveting radio at the time.
We haven't changed our format much since then.
No, but I think we've become more interesting as human beings.
I would hope so.
Now, that being said, let's go back to more notes on my iPhone. No. What I'd really like to impress upon the people listening to this particular podcast predominantly is that if we all were a little bit nicer to each other, and if we all sucked it up just a little bit more and said, I'm going to be a little kinder, I'm going to show a little bit more patience, the world would be a better place. And I know that's something that I can say to you folks out there, but the proof is going to be in the pudding. I am going to lead by example. My goal for this next week is to be a nicer person. And it's in situations where someone may not deserve someone being nice to them. But there's an old saying where it's, the person who needs something the most deserves it the least. Like the person who needs kindness the most oftentimes deserves it the least.
Oh, I see. Because their need is from their actions.
Their actions, yeah. So they're in a bad way. They've had a, let's say, a bad day, and they're taking it out on you, and you can show that moment of kindness that really helps. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
It's
it's sort of like a moment where you're gonna rise above petty retribution, where you could say if it's a fast food worker and they're having a bad day, and then you go through and typically you could, like, if they spit in your burger, they could. This is a terrible example.
Yeah. I'm thinking more, let's go with this. Let's say you walk in to pay for your gas at one of the many petroleum stations you can stop by, and the person doesn't make eye contact with you, tells you how much it is, and they just kind of like, ugh. Saying something like, thank you very much, have a nice day, can mean something. And to try and make eye contact, and maybe you just get them for a second. I was at the movie Cineplex the other day, and they were told that they need to upsell. They need to upsell a particular type of candy. And so I'm purchasing my popcorn and my soda, as I do, because that's what I enjoy when I go to the theater. And she's like, would you be interested in buying this? It's only an extra $1.50 right now, and you get to choose between chocolate or there's this fruit option. And I said, I'm not really interested. And rather than her going, oh yeah, I know, I've got to say this, thank you very much. And she goes, well, that's just fine. If you're interested in this later, let me know and we can, accommodate you. And I stopped for a second. I'm like, let you know later if I want this. That's such a nice thing to say.
Yeah.
And you didn't try and throw your parent business under the bus and make it seem cool. Like, don't worry, you and I, we're on the same boat. This is corporate America. And I said, well, you know what? I will take those. And I can't remember what treat I had. I just handed it over to one of the other people I was there with. And I said, excellent work on that upsell. And I was walking away. I could hear her go, like, that was so nice. She's like, I'm so glad I got one of these.
Burger King is really working on upselling these cookies right now.
The Otis Spunkmeyer cookies?
Yeah. So they have signs on their drive-thru that says, if you don't get offered cookies, you get them for free. Like so they're telling their employees, push these cookies and push them hard. And there have been a few times that they didn't say the cookies, but then am I really supposed to confront that person when I go up to the window like, get me my cookies, you didn't say nothing. Gotcha. I have walked away from that. I have not gotten the cookies. I feel like an upselling is, I understand, hey, you've got inventory, you're trying to move stuff. I understand that. But I always feel like anytime someone tries to upsell me, even if they're being polite, the fact that they are trying to get me to make a purchase turns me off from the whole shebang.
I think this, if a company like a gas station wants to upsell me something like candy bars, let's say they're saying like, gosh, you can buy 2 king-size candy bars for $3. Rather than have the clerk, the person who I am being forced to have an interaction with to continue this purchase, I have to talk to the clerk no matter what. Have a third party who just is standing near the front, and maybe they are holding a basket, and they say, be like, excuse me, sir, thank you very much for stopping at Gary's Gas. Did you know that today we're offering these, king-size candy bars? And so that way, if I'm like, no, thank you, I don't have this awkward interaction for the rest of my purchase with the person behind the desk. Or I come up there and I can say like, oh, I did not know that. Because they're just trying to get your attention, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to run a business. Have you ever had to run a business?
Well, I've never ran a business. But
worked retail, kind of.
But I I think it's definitely hard for me as a customer to want to engage when I'm being upsold. It's even harder if I'm working somewhere and they're saying push this particular thing.
Right.
I not a fan, but you got to do what you got to do. You got to make a buck. It's all in the name of the game, you know?
The ultimate thing that I don't care for are the extended warranties on products that appliance and electronic stores sell you.
Would you like replacement coverage for $20 for the next 2 years?
Yep. If it breaks, we find a lot of people say this happens to this product. I will tell them. I'll be like, so if you're telling me in the next 18 months this product is going to break and it commonly breaks, why do I want to buy it now?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Do you want to take protection on the fact that that we may have sold you a piece of shit?
Yeah, right. And then there's another person who's telling me like, well, this covers scratches. I was buying a PS4 game. And they're like, this covers scratches on the disc. And I'm like, you know what? You make a good point. I'm just going to go home and download it. So you just talked yourself out of a $60 sale. I will just give that money directly to the PlayStation Corporation.
We talked a little bit about smart electronics, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the future you can pirate other things besides digital content. Like you could be like, oh yeah, I have this machine that scanned what a McDonald's burger is like, and then it can just make me a McDonald's burger whenever I want.
This is like the fourth time you've talked about replicators.
Oh,
that's because what you're thinking about is that's Star Trek replicator.
The whole point of doing this podcast is to hopefully inspire someone out there to make a goddamn replicator.
Did you ever think when you were a kid, I can't live without blank? Oh, I don't know what I would do if blank ever disappeared.
I'm not sure if I ever pieced it together in the idea of what would I do without it, but there were definitely things where I thought, if I could have that every day, life would be perfect. So pizza. Mm-hmm. For a long period of time, I thought if every meal was pizza, everything would be awesome. Like, could you imagine how awesome that would be? And that's only because as a kid, you have the experience of this thing you like, and the amount you get is always regulated by those who are taking care of you. So you have no idea what it would be like to eat pizza every day for a week and then be sick of pizza. Like, that was such a foreign concept. It didn't even compute. So I guess that's the best I can think of coming close to that.
I always thought as a kid, if I could just beat Sunset Riders on the Super Nintendo, I wouldn't need anything else.
Did you
beat it? That's all I need. Yeah, I finally beat Sir Richard Rose, and it took me a long time, and when I finally beat it, I was all by myself, and there was no one else there to enjoy it, and I cried. I cried.
And it was Sunset Riders. It wasn't Cowboys of Moo Mesa?
No, I never played Cowboys of Moo Mesa with the exception of Skateland. Mm-hmm. I did play Sunset Riders. I had it on the Super Nintendo. That Gradius or Gradius, I don't know how you pronounce that, but I always had the certain gun type that I would set my ship up with. Turtles in Time, of course. I beat that many, many, many times.
Yeah. The Turtles arcade games. The Turtles video games, the side-scrollers, are the best of that genre.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. Just doesn't even come close to it.
You know who never played video games?
Rachel Hoffman?
Our guest, Rachel Hoffman.
You're saying that for true. She never played them, ever.
I never remember a single time where Rachel Hoffman ever said she played video games. And we always had a video game system at my house. And Rachel was a friend of my sister's, so I've known her for a long time. And yet I never saw her pick up a controller. I imagine she'd be one of those people when she picked up a controller, if she would push the left button, her whole body would shift left and then shift right, which you could always tell that was a novice gamer.
Yeah.
It's one thing to kind of get yourself into it a little bit, but it's a whole other thing when your whole body turns.
Did you ever
you're in a bobsled.
Did you ever play a game where you actually got a sore on your thumb from hitting the gamepad buttons too much?
Mario Party, my sister bought weightlifting gloves because you had to move the toggle around.
Oh, that's smart.
And I know there's other people who did that for certain games. In the King of Kong, A Fistful of Quarters, they talk about how one guy playing an old school arcade game would get weightlifting gloves. So that's not considered
cheating then?
No.
Yeah, there's no rule about we've talked about Billy Mitchell a few times on this podcast, but in that world where there's record setting, and so you're trying to make a controlled environment, I guess they don't I guess if it's just you're wearing gloves, it's not like you're wearing a prosthetic or something that gives you a super unfair advantage. It's more protection for your own hand.
Yeah, if we found out the glove was housing a small drill bit that was allowing you to have some kind of upper hand, then maybe. But for the most part, you're allowed to do things to make sure that your flesh does not peel off of your palm.
Yeah. And today's guest has a legal background, but I think she missed what could have been a very lucrative career in video game legal.
Oh,
stuff,
without a doubt.
Like representing people with high scores that are getting challenged, or suing Twin Galaxies for false advertising or something like that.
People who have high scores are now major celebrities, so there's got to be branches of some of the big agencies.
Oh yeah.
Talent agencies that have now opened up and and want to represent. They're like, get on a bus to Akron. There's a kid who just beat Sunset Riders with one man.
And you're trying to track down who the mysterious ass is that's playing all these games.
Or GOD. Well, listen, let's not wait any longer. Let's welcome Rachel Hoffman into this episode of JJ Meets World. And I'm pretty excited about this one because Rachel's an interesting person. She does not laugh, but at one point I promise I will get some audio of Rachel's laugh because it's very distinct. I can always tell when she's in an audience that I am performing for, and I appreciate it. I appreciate a distinct laugh.
That's Rachel.
JJ Meets World.
We welcome into the podcast studio Rachel Hoffman, a girl who I've known for a long time because she was very good friends with my younger sister, Christy, and we have then since become friends. Hello, Rachel.
Hello, JJ.
So, Rachel, I feel like you were slightly apprehensive about being on the podcast.
I was.
And tell me why.
Well, it's just I feel like to be on a podcast, you need to come with, tales and stories and exciting things to talk about. And
you obviously haven't listened to a lot of our podcasts.
That's probably true. Mm-hmm. That's probably true.
But that's good. I like it when people come in cold and they don't come in with a whole bunch of preset stories. This is not... the Late Show with Craig Ferguson. You don't need to come in with stock stories about what it was like working with B. Arthur.
And I already told the Chinese food story in a previous podcast.
Oh, and that's see, and I even forgot about that. Maybe it's just my memory. I probably do have some good stories.
Well,
I just
don't worry.
About it.
We kept your identity a secret. We called you Rachel Hoffman.
Oh, yep.
So no one.
But now you've given up her secret identity, admitting that this is that person. So you've nullified the fact that we used a fake name.
Oops.
So let's start with this. So we don't normally get some heavy-hitting topics on this podcast, but I think you'd be a good person to talk about because you're very heavily involved with the Human Relations Commission here in Fargo-Moorhead.
Yes, with the Fargo one. There is a Moorhead. Moorhead has started.
Oh, is it fairly new?
They had one in the past, and then it kind of stopped existing for a couple of years, and it started again in the past fall.
So tell us what the Human Relations Commission is, what they do.
Really, they just kind of promote equality in the city, depending on what's going on, a lot of different topics, working to make it more of kind of a welcoming community.
And do you think that Fargo has taken to that, or there is resistance to it?
I think there's both. And you'll always find that. There's kind of people who really accept diversity, really respond to it, find things, go out into the community. And then there's always going to be people who kind of are more resistant to it, but it's always, I like to think there's probably 20% of people who don't respond to most things. And
because it doesn't affect their little chunk of the world and they don't want change.
Right. It's the resistance to change, the resistance to new ideas, kind of.
And it's not necessarily that they are racist or bigoted. Some people definitely are.
Right.
But then other people just don't like change. So if it was a matter of, listen, we're going to make your garbage day Wednesday instead of Thursday, they would have the same outrage that they have towards...
Yeah, and some people just like to be angry about things.
Right?
So it's just, some people live to complain, and that's okay too, if...
I used to think living to complain was something reserved for older folks. It's not. Not at all. Have you read Yelp lately? There are people who have been bred to just bitch.
This is coming from a guy who has written how many strongly worded letters to fast food chains?
In fact, would you like to hear about my most recent?
Yes, please.
I like a good, strongly worded letter. I feel, especially when it's handwritten and sent through the U.S. Postal Service, because sometimes people need to know that. It's so easy to leave a bad review. You go in somewhere, you have a bad run-in with a waiter or waitress, the bathroom is not tidy, and people just go on, and that one bad review from a consumer who just maybe had a bad moment can completely ruin a business that's tried really hard. So I let things cool down a little bit. I never write a Yelp review within, a day of being at a restaurant, unless the service was amazing. If something really good happens, I praise them for that because they met my expectations and then went above and beyond that. But if it's a critical review, I wait a little bit. So I was at a Taco John's. That's right, I'm naming the business in Bismarck. And originally, I was with the line benders. We had stopped. We were going to have dinner at Jimmy John's. Closed at 9 o'clock. It's 9:15. So then we went to this other restaurant. Closed at 9 o'clock. Again, now it's 9:20. We Googled this Taco John's. It's open till 11. Great. So we go to Taco John's. We're the only ones there. We walk in. There's nobody manning the counter. So we have to go, hello? Hello? Finally, some guy comes out and he goes, what, you guys want to order? Yeah, dude, we do. So Britta orders first, and she gets her cup. Kevin Kennedy's ordering next, and he says, what size potato Olays do you have? Like a small, a medium, or like a large? And then the guy goes, yeah. This dude does not care. He is completely checked out. That's when I look over, and they've got a salsa bar that you can choose your own salsas. Yeah, Taco John's, are you familiar with this? They're both nodding their heads. Remember, people are listening to this, you guys. You have to acknowledge.
I don't remember that at Taco John's.
I'm just so wrapped up in the story.
I thought they were more of the packets, but anyway.
No. They've got, that's to make it classy. They've got this salsa bar you can use now. So the salsa bar is cleaned off completely. There's no salsa. And I hear Britta go, oh! And she's used the pop machine, and it's sprayed. The pop machine is sprayed all over her. So we go, ha, 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 you're stupid. And so she goes to the next. She's like, well, I guess I won't have Mountain Dew. I'll have Pepsi instead. She pushes Pepsi, squirts all over her. They've already taken the nozzles out of the pop machine. And so
when does Taco John's close?
Not till 11.
Okay, yeah.
And I confirmed that it's not like they close the restaurant at 9 and drive-thrus open till 11. No, the restaurant itself, the dining room, is open until 11. So it's clear that these guys have just started the closing procedures early so they could leave. So we get our food in 3 stages. The first stage, the potato Olays. They come out after about 4 minutes, and then we wait 8 minutes until the next set of food is ready, but not all the food. So we're all eating in different intervals, and at one point he goes, I suppose you guys are going to want napkins? And we said yes, and so he put napkins on the front counter and goes, okay, there's napkins up here. So we had to get up and go get napkins. So, and mind you, we spent, I think, $70. There were 5 of us. So
wow.
Yeah, so we spent a lot of money.
So each, like everyone paid at least $10. Unless
yeah.
One person paid 20 and one person got,
which is possible,
got some nachos.
The line benders think of me kind of like a never-ending pile of money. So when we left, I took a couple days, and then I grabbed the receipt, and I wrote in an email. I did this via email to Taco John's corporate. And my email was, would you please forward this to the franchise owner in Bismarck, North Dakota? Because if I owned that franchise, I would be really pissed because I will never stop there again because of this experience and how shitty it was after spending that much money. Now, the amount of money we spent covered every single employee who was there until the end of the night. From 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock, our single order covered their wages and then some. But they'll never get that again. So the franchise owner reached out to me just recently, and I put in it, I said, I am not looking for a refund. I am not looking for coupons. I don't want any of that stuff. I would just like to know if I was a franchise owner, and here's a way that you can improve your customer service in the future. And so the franchise owner reached out, and he goes, I am going to send you some coupons so next time you're coming through Bismarck.
And you're like, no, I'm going to use these here.
Yeah. And it's it's on a street called like burnt boat or burnt paddle. I can't remember, but that really like stuck out. It's burnt something.
Do you always get responses?
Not always. Sometimes, like, there's a certain bovine-themed royalty restaurant on 13th Avenue in Fargo, which is the friggin' worst. They confuse hot fudge and chocolate syrup, which could not be more different. So if I said a hot fudge sundae and they give me a chocolate syrup sundae, that's stupid.
Dairy Queen.
And rather than
Rachel and I are sitting here going, what is
This riddle.
cow themed royalty?
bovine, I believe I said. Bovine themed royalty. I tried to class that up.
Yeah.
They have stopped responding because I've written them several strongly worded letters about the poor service. There was a time I got stuck in their drive-thru for 45 minutes. And I mean stuck because I had cars in front of me and cars behind me and I could not pull out. When that's unacceptable because anyway,
every morning when I eat cereal I put bovine theme on it.
Is it?
Yeah.
So they sent me $20 in DQ bucks.
Have you ever had someone accuse you of lying? Like, instead of being conciliatory, like a franchise owner who is like, I don't believe the veracity of your claim. And in fact,
I've had managers who've told me, well, sir, I don't believe that it's that bad. For example, here's a time I got into a fight with a manager at McDonald's. I was on the way back from the lake, and my younger sister and I had gone into the McDonald's in Detroit Lakes, and I had ordered just like, I think, a McFlurry, and Chrissy got a number 2, which at the time was 2 cheeseburgers, fries, and a drink. Now, we all have had an extra value meal at some time in our life, correct?
yes,
Right?
Yes.
plenty
At
of times.
McDonald's. What is
Rachel thought about it for a second.
I'm not sure.
What's an extra value meal?
It's a meal that you can order by saying a number.
And what do you get with it?
Drink, the main sandwich, and a potato side.
So
On average.
they hand Chrissy a bag, and she goes, oh, can I get my drink? And they're like, no, you didn't order a drink. She goes, oh, well, I got a number 2. And they're like, it doesn't come with a drink. And so she starts to walk out, and Chrissy is frustrating, and I'm like, I'm going to light this place up. So I go up, and I said, well, she ordered a number 2, and they claim that their customer base in Detroit Lakes don't really like the drink. So when people order an extra value meal, they just ring it in as the sandwich and the fries, and then you have to request the drink. And I said, no. McDonald's has spent billions advertising their extra value meal, which is some form of a sandwich or chicken product, fries,
Just looking at
and
the waveform over here.
friggin' drink. So if you're going to mess with that, if you're going to be the one McDonald's who decides that this corporation hasn't really figured out fast food yet, you need to tell the people. And so she finally says to me, she goes, if I just give you a drink, will you leave? And I said, no, because I would like you to acknowledge the fact that this is insanity. Now, what's really insane here? Is it me complaining like this? Or is it that they didn't include the drink? But honestly, if you did not get a drink and you asked for one, wouldn't they go, oh, geez, you're probably right. We do have hundreds of photos of the extra value meals all over this place. And we should probably make good on what they've advertised for the last 25 years. Back to you, Rachel. When was the last time you had to write a strongly worded letter?
It was probably a legal one, right?
No, for personal reasons.
For personal reasons.
Well, let's start with personal
Yeah.
reasons because I want to get touch into the law later.
I honestly don't remember. I know there's been a lot of times where I've thought about it. I don't think I actually have. And so in most of the times, like fast food, for instance, if I'm doing something, it goes through the drive-thru and then you go out and you're like, this is not my order. But then you have to think about, do you want to spend the extra time to like go back, go in, and generally it's not worth it. So I guess
you value your time that much.
Have you ever
Well, no,
like
but-
gotten home with an order then realized it's wrong, and then went back to the restaurant.
No, I've gotten like 10 feet past the drive-through window and realized it's wrong and still haven't done anything because it's just more convenient.
Well, I guess I'm eating this fillet of fish tonight.
Right. No, it used to be actually because I didn't eat meat. And so it was my typical order actually through McDonald's. It was cheeseburger, no meat, extra pickles.
So it's just the bun, cheese, and then toppings?
Yeah, which is...
Wrong.
Well, it's okay.
Incorrect order.
But half the time they would just,
Why don't you just go to Subway instead? What do you mean?
Because because she has French
fries,
right?
They actually
you have French fries.
Yeah.
What the hell are you talking about?
Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, you made it sound
and there's
like...
something about that like ketchup onion mix that they do.
Yeah, the onions at McDonald's are tasty.
That's something that Burger King needs to get up on their game about is their... I know you've said this plenty of times, but their mustard to ketchup ratio on Burger King burgers is way out of whack.
I get my burgers plain because I cannot stand mustard, period. And I've had places that will just take the bun and scrape the mustard off, and I'm like, it's already soaked into the bun.
Yeah, that's not doing enough at all. Clearly enough. That's just like I know, like when we've been at Subway before, and you'll want tuna.
Because I don't like mayonnaise.
You don't like mayonnaise, but haven't you had tuna? You haven't had tuna subs there before.
I have, and I know that there's mayonnaise mixed into it, but there's something about a mix versus just a...
Yeah, but I've seen like where
mayonnaise.
they'd cut your thing and they wouldn't scrape anything else off of previous sandwiches off the knife.
And I will tell them, could you please wipe the knife? I am allergic to the products that are onto it. And they always give me the same look, which is, I'm not going to call this guy out on his lie because what if? So, back to Rachel. Rachel, last book that you read.
I'm reading a book called The History of the 20th Century. It's riveting. It's actually really interesting because I kind of am doing it as an audiobook as well. So it's just you go through like one war through each car ride.
So it's nonfiction?
Yes. It's good.
Did you read for pleasure when you were in high school and college?
Oh, I definitely read more then. Because now I read so much for work to where it's hard to find the extra time to kind of sit down with a book.
It used to be you were very limited too on what books were available on tape. I am in the car a lot, so I listen to a lot of books on tape along with podcasts. And so nowadays, because of the internet, any book you can find on podcasts, which I think are via Audible or something, which is great. Also, hey, if someone from Audible is listening, I know that you sponsor a lot of podcasts, and JJ Meets World would be a great sponsorship opportunity for you. Audible.com, part of the Amazon family.
Our audience is really good at listening.
The worst book on tape, it was the year 2004. It was a road trip with your sister and mother.
Oh, God.
We were going to Colorado Springs, and we stopped at Barnes & Noble to get, it was books on CD at the time. And it was a Dean Koontz book, unabridged. It was 18 hours, and the amount of adjectives that man used was just, it went on forever. And
the abridged version, the one they use in AP English class?
No, the abridged one is like where they cut out a lot of, it's kind of like the extra excessive. Yeah. So it's just very 18 hours of a Dean Koontz book, which isn't like, it was fine, but it was just so, it lasted the entire drive, which was kind of nice, I suppose.
Do you remember what the title of the book was?
I do not.
Do you remember anything about it?
There was a monsters, and the narrator used this monster voice, which was something as well. It was a deep and gurgly. It really added some between that and all the adjectives.
Do you think it could be phantoms?
No.
The creature consumes life forms to increase its mass and is able to perfectly mimic other creatures.
This just shows how little I know about Dean Koontz. I was assuming he was like a spy novel guy.
Oh, no. Dean Koontz is in the same realm as Stephen King.
Okay, yeah. Definitely.
What about The Taking?
That doesn't sound correct either.
Science fiction, suspense, mystery, and horror novel. In the midst of an oddly sudden rainstorm, author Molly Sloan awakens in the middle of the night. Unable to return to sleep, she leaves her husband Neil slumbering in bed and goes downstairs to work on a manuscript in progress.
No.
That wasn't it? What about Frankenstein characters?
No.
Oh, wait, no, that's
in
just...
today's episode of JJ Meets World, we list Dean Koontz books.
I'm just curious to know what Dean Koontz books they might be.
Yeah.
There are certain things that I've always thought were options for me as careers. One of them, I think I'd be an amazing butcher, but never was I given the option of being the reader for. There's some children playing outside the studios.
So these kids,
we really need to get an office.
So if you're hearing the screaming in the background, 2 children outside. I live in a ground level apartment, and they've discovered that we're recording a podcast. So this little boy keeps running up to the screen, pounding on the window, and running away.
They are precocious.
Most of the kids in this neighborhood have no sense of boundaries whatsoever.
That's fine. Oh, and there's another on the way too. I can barely take care of myself, but I know that at one point I want to be a father. How about you? Do you want to be a dad one point,
I think
Tucker?
so, yeah. I have a paternal streak.
Do you?
Yeah.
Not with those kids.
No.
You were just like, well, out of sight, out of mind.
Well, I mean, if they were in danger, like if a tiger was approaching, I would help them out. But if they're just running around pounding on my window, I mean, I'm not going to condone that.
Rachel, have you ever saved someone's life?
No,
No?
I don't think so.
I've saved someone's life.
How?
In fact, on multiple occasions. At one point, my sister ran off the edge of a dock, and a dog jumped in after her, thinking that she was playing, and the dog was drowning her. And so I jumped off the edge of the dock, pushed the dog away, and lifeguarded my sister to safety. Saved her life there.
Where were
Saved her
you,
from
Rachel?
drowning.
Why weren't you helping out Chrissy?
This is how old were you at the time?
This is last week. No. We were probably like 10 and 12 maybe. So before we knew Rachel.
Does your sister still have the same insane metabolism?
Oh my God. Chrissy can eat a large pizza and lose 2 pounds. It drives me insane.
Yeah, I've never seen someone do that before. She can eat all the things. She could have, I bet she has the exact same diet that I do right now, which is just garbage. But she's able to just burn through it.
Mm-hmm.
To be fair, I think one of her tricks is that she'll order an excessive amount of food. So it looks like she's going to eat a ton because she'll in the morning, she'll go to like Burger King for one thing, the McDonald's for another thing. And so it looks like she just has this mound of food, but then she'll take like 3 bites and just be done with it.
My sister also has this thing where she'll take 1 bite too many and spit it into a napkin. So let's say, it's like her body is like, I'm full, but that signal takes a long time to get from the stomach to the brain, and in the meantime she's taking a bite, and the second that signal gets to the brain, it's like, hey, stomach says we're full. She'll like have that bite in her mouth and she'll go and so she'll spit it into a napkin, and that'll be the final bite.
See, what I do is I get that signal that, hey, you're full, and then I think I'm not a quitter.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
Yep. We've been here before, stomach.
Don't
what makes
worry.
you think you're going to tell me what to do now?
We'll do the Polynesian belly roll and make some more room down there.
That works.
It does.
Oh, that works.
Well, hold on. What is the Polynesian
If
belly
you
roll?
combine the Polynesia roll with a squatty potty and wet wipes after the fact, that is the perfect bowel movement.
It's sort of like
What is the Polynesia roll?
It's like where you're in a seated position and you roll, and it's like you're rolling your stomach so that you force food a little deeper so that a pocket opens so you can eat more.
Sometimes I'll do it standing, where like if I've gone to the restroom and then I'm like, no, there's way more in there, I can tell, but it's not being productive. I'll stand in the bathroom and do that, and then it's like it finds new avenues to creep through the intestine.
Yeah, I've eaten several items at restaurants
Rachel's
where you
taking
get a
notes on her
free
phone right now.
T-shirt.
No, I'm Googling this to see if it's a real thing or
The
if
Polynesian
it's just...
belly roll.
I bet
without a
if we
doubt.
had scientific data on how often people who have diarrhea are wearing a free T-shirt at the time,
the numbers would be shocking.
I think there's a strong correlation between the two.
I think you can, if you're using the scientific method, you can jump straight past hypothesis. Just get into the testing phase.
Yep.
Like you're pretty much to fact.
The causation there is clear. It's how large of a correlation.
Very close.
And in what parts? I bet even there's a huge state-by-state difference too. I bet there's a state-by-state difference on the prevalence of free T-shirts in public.
Let me add one more. The amount, so diarrhea, free T-shirt, and stains on said T-shirt.
This is Louisiana, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about basically.
I Googled Polynesian belly roll and it is not in the internet. So I'm not sure what your sources are.
It is now. This podcast is in the internet.
I suppose. There's a Polynesian belly dance. but
Listen,
no belly roll.
I'm not aware of who in Polynesia developed this roll.
It's got to exist somewhere. I mean, there's belly dancers, Polynesian style belly dance. You know what? We'll just wait for somebody because, and I don't know why people in the Polynesia area would be good at it. But
are they going to be offended, like Polynesians, or are they going to be like, we don't have that belly roll?
Do we know any Polynesians? We'll find out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we probably have some listeners.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you had anyone from Polynesia
So far, our
download?
international downloads are one in Canada, one in Iraq, one in Belgium, and then like 6 in England. And everything else is in the USA.
I've got family in England, so I wonder if they're listening to it.
Yep. We know a few people, I think, who are out there too.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they downloaded like one episode and then haven't come back.
Hopefully they'll find some time.
Real interesting.
Or they Googled Transformers and they ended up with the Jack Spade episode.
What are they going to Google to find Rachel here?
Well, let's find out. Let's see what we can do here. So, Rachel, you've got a law degree.
I do.
So, I'm going to pose to you a question that was posed in the musical stage version of Legally Blonde.
Uh-huh.
So, a scam artist takes a little old lady for her entire retirement fund and blew all the money on cocaine and prostitutes and porn. Do you take the case defending the little old lady?
Where is the scam artist located?
Oh, good question. The scam artist is located in South Dakota. You're in North Dakota.
I would just probably say no, because that would be more of an FBI issue.
Because it's crossed state?
Well, it's not only that. I mean, but you would have to have has the crime like been solved and have they already been prosecuted?
Yeah.
So this would be
This
more
is
of a
the civil.
civil. Oh, well, okay. In that case, absolutely. Because then if they've already been criminally prosecuted and they're, have been found guilty and that reason.
Is
then
your
yes.
your area of expertise is civil law?
No, I do financial compliance.
Oh, okay.
I used to do civil litigation.
Got it.
Would you defend the scam artist?
Maybe.
Does everyone deserve a fair trial?
Yes.
Okay. So
Well, representation. Everyone deserves to be represented and well, and I think that's,
So have you ever thought about getting into like the public defender's office?
No.
No, why not?
Well, I think just, I'm happy because right now I'm doing mostly financial compliance, and that's kind of working to prevent problems before they happen. I feel like that would be the exact opposite. When
you're using the public defender, times are tough. I think anytime that you have to seek out someone to represent you in a court of law, it's not a good. No one's at their best at that moment.
And because lawyers become expensive the longer their win record is, right? Like
Is that true?
I mean, would that be part of if a particular lawyer's fees go up?
I'm sure
Do they have
use,
NBA rules when it comes to how much a lawyer gets paid?
No, but
And I'm
think
not talking public defenders. I'm talking private practice.
private practice. No, that's not like a hard rule. I'm sure you could use that to justify your higher price, but no, I don't think anyone's like, oh, I hit my 50th win.
Sure.
It's like, $50 an hour.
But I mean, it'd be hard to be expensive and be a really losing lawyer, wouldn't it?
No.
No.
Sometimes, because if you went to a lawyer, is that one of the first questions you would ask? Is what is your win record?
I would be interested, yeah.
And a lot of the times, it doesn't really matter depending on the cases. Most settle. For instance, when I was working in private practice, I think the whole firm went to court once in 3 years because most things go away.
On the count of 3, let's all say a movie that we think accurately depicts a courtroom process.
Okay,
so
we're gonna have to give me a second.
Okay, think about it. For example, there's a movie called A Civil Action that has John Travolta in it and William H. Macy, where the company is a very well-to-do law firm and it almost goes bankrupt, representing people who worked for this company that represented a city that had been dumping these chemicals into the water, kind of like an Aaron Brockovich type thing. Okay,
so you were looking for an actual example of what we would assume is a realistic depiction of a courtroom setting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I wouldn't be surprised if someone said To Kill a Mockingbird or something like that in here. Does everyone have a movie they're thinking of?
I'm getting close. You got to give me one more second here.
Rachel, did you watch a lot of courtroom?
Well, I've watched a lot, but I don't think any of them would be completely accurate.
Well, but I mean, what do you think is the closest?
Well, that would.
That's what we're getting at. Is which one do you feel like captures the drama of the courtroom process?
Of just the courtroom process?
Or the banality?
And it has to be modern time?
No.
Okay. No, seriously, because there's interesting courtroom scenes in movies that are period pieces.
Yeah. Like in the miniseries John Adams. Mm-hmm. John Adams argues in a courtroom that it was part of like the 13 colonies. And
he defends the British soldiers who were accused of starting the Bloody Sunday Massacre.
Yep.
And gets them off the hook.
Yep, correct. Yeah. It's a very, very amazing scene. Paul Giamatti.
That's really interesting too, because obviously that was when it was still a colony. That was before he was a statesman or anything like that. And they're all wearing wigs. And I want to say there's more than one judge who's presiding. And the whole room is filled with angry American colonists who are just shouting for the heads of these like 13 British soldiers. And no one's telling them like order in the court. There's nothing like that. And John Adams is standing in the middle, just basically shouting as loud as he can so that the court hears him the entire time.
It's a great scene. Yeah. Obviously, you and I both were touched by that movie.
Yeah.
And then
I think I've got one now.
Okay. Do you have one?
No.
Well, what were you working on that whole time?
Well, I was listening to you.
Okay, Tucker and I'll do it, okay? Ready?
Three on one or 3, 2, 1. Go.
1, 2, 3, and then name it.
Okay.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Liar,
Amistad.
liar. What?
Amistad.
Oh, that's true. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I said liar, liar.
Yeah, I bet that happens a lot.
Because I think that most law comes down to technicalities. And the fact that she gets granted that divorce because the prenup she signed, she was not of legal age when she signed it, and it's a last-minute find, and it was a technicality. So even though, and we want Jennifer Tilly to be a guest on this show at one point, which is a very real possibility.
I hope so. I sure hope so. I'm not in the poker world anymore, but I've met Jennifer Tilly probably 30 sometimes.
She does an excellent job in that role, portraying somebody who is just consumed by greed.
Yeah. I got to ask her a few questions about that movie. And my leading question was, when your character grabs Jim Carrey's ass, was that a stunt butt? Was that a stunt hand? And she goes, that's my hand and that's Jim Carrey's butt. And that was the first day that they had shot together. And Jim Carrey was like, just go for it. He was coaching her like how to grab it. But she's awesome.
So do you watch a lot of Law and Order? Is it hard for you to watch Law and Order?
No.
I would ask the same question for a cop.
Do you ever object when you're just in an argument with someone?
All the time. Always.
Do you ever, like, when you and your lawyer friends get together, do you have a lot of, like, who would like another drink? I'll take another tequila. Sustained.
No, but I might do that now.
Yeah.
Rachel.
Bailiff, remove this guy.
Well, no, I mean, to be fair,
he's had one too many.
Yeah, because now I don't work in courtrooms at all, so it's I'm so removed from that world.
Did you ever work in a night court?
I
what
wish
was
those
bull
existed.
like?
That would, I think I would definitely get back into that side of it if that were around.
I've been actually kind of dying to ask someone with a legal background this question, and it's not legal advice for myself. And I don't know how much you really do follow like the news and all that stuff, but I'm really curious about someone with a legal background's opinion on the strategy currently being taken by Michael Avenatti, if you've been following it at all. And essentially he's the lawyer for Stormy Daniels in the Donald Trump thing. And he's been on TV almost every day for like 2 months. But he's also breaking a lot of news, and he's bringing up a lot of stuff, and he's being very aggressive and media savvy against people who are aggressive and media savvy. But he's also a civil attorney. He's in a civil case. He's not prosecuting a criminal case. So I'm just interested in your opinion on that kind of a strategy in that scenario, if you have any at all.
Well, I think for that it's really interesting. It is interesting because it is so public, but I think if he did not keep doing that, it would be kind of swept away or ignored. And so his tactics seem semi-aggressive, but I feel like if he wasn't doing that, it would be, you know, with that media cycle in particular, there's so many, I mean, you can't keep up. There's different strange things every day to where, you know, he's doing what he's got to do. And really, he's came up with some just interesting things that he's brought to light as well. So,
and he claims that as part of being on TV all the time now, that it's actually opened up the floodgates of more information coming his way.
Right.
Because now people understand that he's using it in a certain way. He's able to use it in a certain way. Part of his legal battle is their number one goal, they've said, is to get Daniels out of the NDA, which has been broken already, but there's this threat of millions of damages looming over her. Wouldn't it make sense for Michael Cohen's team to just go, okay, we'll just drop the NDA. You're no longer under threat from that because all the information about this story is already public and out there. Wouldn't that make sense, or is that even possible at this point?
I mean, I'm sure it is possible, but I think if they're using that as just any type of monetary leverage, you know, if that's the only thing they have, why get rid of it? But I guess I don't know enough details about it to.
And then at what point is a lawyer able to act on their client's behalf are they able to act on their client's behalf without first checking in with a client?
Typically that's not a great idea. I think most of the time you want to have a pretty good communication base with your client. You know, you could probably get in trouble if you're misrepresenting them, but you know, at the same time, if they're on the same page, I'm sure they can just kind of go for it depending on the relationship.
The other part that I'll ask, and then I'll make this JJ Meets World again and not Tucker Meets World right now, is how the next step is that he and his team are trying to get both Trump and Michael Cohen deposed. Mm-hmm. What does that mean exactly? Like, and what is the threat there for someone who is being deposed?
Essentially, if you're deposed, you're sworn. I mean, so that would be a sworn testimony and so it's on the record. And so that would become part of the case, the transcript of that. So it's sworn testimony. So for instance, if they say something that's contradicted later, that's, you know, would be something that you've sworn to. That's inaccurate.
That'd be perjury, right?
Yes, essentially. And so that's what a deposition would kind of make it much more on the record than as opposed to where Trump's been saying things, you know, off the record or not in a sworn statement, and he can get away with most things in that.
And can a negative inference be there in a civil case at all times, or by a judge? You know, like when someone pleads the fifth, because I know in criminal cases, I understand that if you plead the fifth in a criminal case, the jury or the judge, whoever's presiding, cannot draw a negative inference from that.
Right.
But I've heard that the rules are different in a civil case.
For civil, you can still plead the fifth.
You can plead the fifth, but can the judge then draw a negative inference, meaning seeing that as a negative versus in a criminal where they're supposed to go, just like, okay, they said nothing and it means nothing.
Right. It's the same.
It's the same. Okay.
All right. So let's go with this. So you do a lot of, you are in both the world of banking and legalese in the banking world.
Yes.
So
Dodd-Frank.
Let me put this
super exciting.
I come in and I apply at a bank for a loan to purchase a moderately priced home in a community. There's nothing wrong with the home. It has a great inspection. It's actually below market value, so I'm going to be walking directly into equity, and my credit is impeccable. I've got no outstanding debt, but I'm denied a bank loan. And I find out later it's because I was wearing pajama pants when I came in. And the loan officer thought, well, this person's not responsible because they're wearing pajama pants in a very formal setting. What would you advise me to do?
Well, technically, so for that, a loan officer really, they couldn't make a judgment based on any protected class. And so if you were,
protected class meaning sweatpants. Let's call them sweatpants.
Okay.
I think what she's saying is that sweatpants wearers aren't a protected class.
Right.
They're
so
not.
If they were denying it because you were, a male or if you were pregnant or something like that, then that would be bad. But generally, everyone should be treating everyone equally anyway. So I think, you could make a statement about it to bring attention to it. But I think you would also have to prove that that was the reason. And, if you had like a credit score of like $400, and
Let's say I have a
we're
credit score of
wearing-
875.
and so it's just sweatpants. Well, then
Just sweatpants.
then you probably would have a
I mean, really, at that point, you guys are. It's bad business.
yeah. That
It's
would
not
just
even.
not
It's
be a
not
good
even
decision.
discrimination. It's just bad business.
Right.
Because that wouldn't technically be illegal at that point, then, right? Would it?
To not give a
Like, let's say he got information and it was a written memo that said everything checked out, but he was wearing sweatpants, so I decided to deny him the loan. And like at that point, is like, well, the bank just has the right to decide whether or not they're going to give you a loan, or
no, because if you deny a loan, you have to give an adverse action and tell them why you're denying it, and
Okay.
there can only be particular things.
Got
and
it.
so sweatpants is not a checkable category.
yes.
Is there something that sweatpants could fall under a category?
No.
No.
If you were not wearing pants, I think it just by the policy of the
Do you have a no shirt,
institution.
no shoes, no service?
Right, so they could just deny it, you coming in based on the
You know,
lack of pants.
we just really need to make sure this loan goes through for our new studio space.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And
I recommend wearing pants.
And I forgot that I had an appointment. And so I just thought here's the thing. I was wearing a dress shirt, a bow tie. My hair was done up nice. I had the shoes that I got with a tuxedo rental, but I just didn't have time for the pants. Because the great thing about pajama pants is they work both as the underpant and the overpant at the same time. It's a 2-for-1. It's the pert plus of pants.
I kind of assumed back to sweatpants, but you did start with pajama pants. Those aren't necessarily sweatpants. So you're right.
They
They
there's
could be patterned.
correct. They could have your favorite cereal box embroidered
little
on them.
pizzas.
Little pizzas.
Get some little JJ Meets the World pajama bottoms.
Oh, people would love that.
would you wear one of
I
those?
would wear
Rachel?
those. I would definitely wear those. Do they still make the pajama bottoms that look like jeans?
Yes.
Those are always fascinating. Do you own them?
No, I haven't
think I need
pulled
to
the
get some
trigger.
now. I'm guessing they're like elastic waistband and everything.
Yeah.
Oh,
And-
it's good
yeah.
stuff.
And it's
Yeah.
the best when you see someone in public. Like, I think I saw someone or at the mall, like, wearing them. And I don't know if they think they're getting away with it. Like everybody thinks they're wearing jeans, or if it's just,
It's more like at a glance, like when you look at them real quick and look away, you'd swear that person was wearing jeans.
Right. Or if, like, you see the videos of people who are just, like, only in body paint, like, walking, like, down the street. It's like, how would that not be completely noticeable?
We
But I
live in
guess
a
I've
world
never-
where stretch pants and yoga pants are commonplace for people to wear. Why can't pajama pants or sweatpants, as I like to call them, gym bottoms, why aren't gym bottoms a bigger thing?
The athleisure.
Ugh, wouldn't that be great? When you Google gym bottoms,
I feel like you're Googling, like, JIM.
Oh, it's Jim Bottoms. He runs the corner market.
oh, it's
Mr.
a
Bottoms.
website from the EU comes up, but it's all pictures of like sweatpants, gym bottoms. I love that. I love that term, gym bottoms. Not that you ever get a gym top.
Got to get my Jim Bottoms on before I go out to Dairy Queen.
Patton Oswalt, of course, does the best where he talks about his disgusting sweatpants and how awful, like, the stink that comes from them because you don't wash them as often as you really need to.
JJ, you've known Rachel for a long time.
Long time.
Do you have any embarrassing Rachel stories?
Not really. Rachel conducts herself with a great amount of decorum, and Rachel, I think, prefers to judge other people and have less opportunity for them to judge her. Rachel, more than any other friend of mine, has called me pissed off and made me remove photos I have posted of her onto Facebook.
I feel like they're posted for spite, first of all. And
I'm just trying to even out the field. My favorite, though, was Rachel and I were with some friends in the Twin Cities, and we went to Barfly. You remember this story at all?
no.
And we were dancing to the B-52s, little Love Shack, and I'm much taller than Rachel, and so I had my digital camera, and I have it pointed down, and Rachel, it's the point of where it's bang, bang on the door, and Rachel's just like pounding my chest, and she's like, bang, bang on the door, and then she stops and does the, "You're what?" And that was one of the most fun nights I've ever had with you, Rachel, was that night in the cities.
That was fun.
Let's talk about this. Here's a great story. I visited Rachel in Scotland when she was studying abroad.
Oh, yeah.
And Rachel told me, she goes, "JJ, you know what you're going to love? Scottish nightclubs." And I said, "Why is that?" And she goes, "Scottish nightclubs don't play the music you assume they would, judging from American nightclubs. They are playing whatever the hell they want to play.
Mostly the Grease medley.
Yeah, the Grease Mega Mix. When I was there, I was like, could you play the Ghostbusters theme? And he goes, Ray Parker Jr., you got it. And when the Ghostbuster theme starts playing, you expect the dance floor to thin out because it's a weird song. It got packed.
Yeah.
And then they did Dolly Parton's 9 to 5 following that up. Those things are totally different genres.
Wow, I never knew that you are basically a Scottish DJ.
Pretty much.
No idea.
And it was the Baywatch theme song every night. You could not go to a single club without the Baywatch theme song. And this was 2006.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like,
So all their nightclub music is basically from movies and TV.
Yeah.
Wow.
And not even current. It's not like they were playing like the Will and Grace theme or something like that. They were really digging deep.
Mm-hmm.
That trip was a lot of fun.
Like the theme song to Friends.
Yeah. Yeah. On that trip was the first I had ever heard of the story of Greyfriars Bobby. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And when I hear, do you know the story of Greyfriars Bobby? It's this little tiny dog, and his owner passed away, and the owner was buried, and the dog went and stayed at the owner's grave for a couple of days. And then they were like, well, we got to get this dog out of the cemetery. So they shoo him away. The next morning, the dog is sleeping on the gravesite again. So they shoo him away. Well, this happens over and over and over and over and over again for years because this dog misses his owner so much. And so they've got a statue to the dog next to the cemetery where it took place. And just outside of that is the best falafel joint you will ever eat at. So when I hear the story of Greyfriars Bobby, immediately I'm like, oh, I want a falafel so bad right now. Remember that?
It was the best falafel. And I always ordered it with cheese. So it was like a falafel like sandwich. It was actually, I think it was like a Latvian flatbread where they put it and like grilled it. So it's just like
good.
this. It was amazing. But I would ask for it with cheese on it. And he told me that was an American thing. So apparently cheese on falafel is very American, but it was
You
delicious.
Americans.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, that's not a Scottish accent at all, but I tried.
Anyone put cheese on a falafel?
You can put anything on a falafel.
Yeah.
I've never put cheese on falafel before.
It was pretty good. Like cheese and hot sauce.
So it's like melted cheese, like a melted cheese sauce?
Well, I mean, the falafel was hot enough, so like and the bread was hot, so yeah, so it just kind of, not like a nacho sauce. It wasn't like a...
No pump cheese.
Not like a queso.
No.
No
It was
queso
like
blanco.
This is like a cut piece of cheese off of a block.
Okay, like a cheddar?
Well, Scottish people don't really... The cheddar cheese isn't as popular in Scotland as it is in the United States.
Cheddar cheese is also actually originally from England. Well, cheddar is in England, but then this is interesting. So, champagne, for instance, in France, where you can only name it champagne if it comes from that particular region and has the particular like style of grapes. So there's the kind of a thing. I think cheddar, I believe, had the option to have cheddar cheese just to be able to produce in the cheddar region. And I believe they declined. This could be completely inaccurate, but I'm fairly certain that.
I did learn recently that cheddar is the process by which it's made. So if something is a cheddar, it's because it was cheddared when it was made.
Well, how do you cheddar something?
I don't know what that process is exactly, but I took a cheese class recently, and that was one of the things we learned.
What else did you learn?
That I like goat cheese.
Oh, yeah,
and that
goat cheese.
Really don't like blue cheese. Well,
Really?
The blue cheese that they put in front of us was not like what you'd be used to in... Like as far as the flavor of blue cheese dressing, or
Right.
even
It wasn't like a crumble.
It wasn't a crumble.
You were getting blue. You were getting the blue cheese, like.
But this was like dark blue. I mean, this was mostly blue.
Oh, yeah.
And it tasted like death.
Oh,
I ate
so
it.
good.
No, thank you.
Did you accompany it with like some milk chocolate or like a fig jam?
No, Kenzie and I took the class at that nice fancy grocery. It used to be Matheson's. The
Prairie
co-op,
Roots.
the co-op. And no, we each had a plate in front of us, and we were each given the cheeses that we'd be eating with. And then there were almonds and a few slices of like salami, but you were walked through each one in a group. So we all ate the same cheese at the same time. And we started with the goat cheese, and I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. And I can't remember the rest of them except for the blue cheese, which was just intolerable to me.
Huh.
This morning I had goat cheese cream cheese with a bagel, and it is the best cream cheese that you will find.
That's really interesting because goat cheese is kind of already cream cheese. Like it's very spreadable in the same way.
Right.
Has a lot of the same qualities to it.
So mixed was amazing.
Rachel, for the better part of our relationship, has treated me like a alternative boyfriend when she doesn't have a boyfriend, but she needs something boyfriend related done. Here's some examples. One time she called and said, I've got a flat tire. Will you come and switch it for me? And I said, no, I'm not your boyfriend, Rachel. Like, there's got to be some guy out there that you're with. And she's like, just come and switch this for me. So I did. And when I got there, she had a lot of kites in the back of her car. So much so that we had to remove a bunch of the kites. You remember this?
Yes, I think I had like 20 kites, and I can't remember where they came from.
Yeah, you had a lot of kites. There's another time where she was moving from St. Paul back to Fargo because she was going to pursue her law degree. And she was like, hey, listen, could you come and move me out of my apartment? And I said, well, I'm not your boyfriend. And she's like, just come on. I'll treat you to dinner. Like, we'll have a whole night. We'll have some fun. And so what she didn't tell me before I got there, though, was this. Number one, there was not a bed for me to sleep in at her apartment. I slept on what was an inflatable mat on the floor, but the inflatable mat where you open a valve and it fills with about like a centimeter's worth of air. And then you shut the valve. But if you're a big guy like me, you might as well just lay on the floor. There was also a fruit fly infestation in her apartment at the time, to which she showed me this neat device where you take a piece of paper and you roll it so it becomes a cone. Tape it, and then you put that into a jar. And then tape around the cone so that the only way in is through the little tiny hole at the base of the cone, and you put sugar water in the bottom of it. And the fruit flies will fly in there going for the sugar water, but they won't be able to fly out. It's ingenious. I've used it since then.
You can use wine, juice, just kind of any old fruit-based beverage.
But the top of the moving Rachel out of her apartment list was we sat and watched not once but twice back to back a movie with Matthew McConaughey about surfing.
Surfer Dude. To this day, I think it's one of the greatest films ever created. It's really...
So is this like how you and Britta have the John Denver song challenge? Do you and Rachel have the...
We have yet to watch that again since the night of. And it's not that I dislike the movie. It's just it was playing on Rachel's like iBook, and neither of us were, I guess, motivated enough to go turn it off, and it was just on autoplay. So it gets to the end and then starts over again with like, this water's all right, all right, all right.
My furniture situation was very sparse at that time because I had came from there was a bed bug thing in St. Paul, which was traumatizing.
Really? Like an issue? Like...
I was in an apartment when I was going to school there, and it was not me, but my next door neighbor had a bed bug infestation, which made me so scared that I threw away like all of my furniture because I did not want to. I think I researched it so much, and it was the fact that I think in one wire hanger, 11 bed bugs could be in there.
Oh yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. So like I kept nothing.
Well,
it was the greatest purge.
You were telling us the stories about like where they would take off a faceplate and it would just be packed to the gills with dead bugs behind it.
So I abandoned everything. And then when I went back, because they had to do like the heat treatment, I ran into the exterminator and we had this great chat where he told me that the neighbor of mine had the worst bed bug infestation he had ever seen, because typically bed bugs will only come out at night. They'll feed on, flesh. And then we'll go back into the bed and you won't really know you have them. You'll just see bites and maybe a few things. But he had found like the bed bugs were like on the walls during the day. Like it was just like thick. He had to use like a shop vac to get the bed bugs out.
Ugh.
Right. So this is why I abandoned everything, because I was like, I slept in the floor of my office when I worked at the cabaret. And
was it Pete's Cabaret?
Patrick's. Yeah.
Tell us about that one act that you told me about at Patrick's Cabaret.
So
here's the thing. Patrick's Cabaret it's in St. Paul, right?
Minneapolis. And actually it's just closing.
No.
Now. They're having their last performance in the summer.
It was an old fire hall, right?
It wasn't an old fire hall. The cabaret itself was would be turning 33 this year. It started as kind of a performance art venue for people. It was mostly focused kind of on the GLBTQ, artists with disabilities, to give them a place to perform of whatever anybody wanted. It was usually 6 acts, not screened, just a place for people to express themselves. And it had amazing stuff. But
so cool. It was one of the neatest performance venues I had ever been in, because you could tell it was 110% artist driven. Mm-hmm. And Rachel told me about an act, because I said, well, let's go to a show here. And she goes, just so you know, this is going to be an act unlike anything you've ever seen before, anything you've experienced. And if you consider yourself conservative in the least, this is not the place you want to be.
JJ's super conservative.
Well, and I mean, they did have shows. There's a lot of like dance and, so things that, but really it was, an uncensored. There was a lot of, and so I started there as an intern. And I was sitting there, and it was this artist. He came down, and he was wearing, I think like a polo shirt and capris, and like had beads around his neck, and was wearing high heels. And so there's like some music going, and all of a sudden, so he kind of like strips down, and so he has there's a bow covering his region, and he's still wearing the beads, and he's dancing. And then eventually he takes the beads off. The beads become a tail of sorts as he's kind of like crawling across the floor.
How did he fasten them?
Naturally. I was naturally fastened. So crawls across the floor to where there is a blanket spread with a jar of pickles just sitting there.
Sliced or whole spears?
Whole.
Okay.
Yeah, not spears, whole pickles.
Whole pickles. He undoes the jar, lays out the pickles. Some stuff happens with the pickle. I think.
What happens with the pickles?
I think he swallowed, or something went all the way down his throat. I believe it was regurgitated.
It's a shame this place is closing down.
Right. No, I mean, honestly, it was amazing. Like it was absolutely like this was, and at the time, I don't know if I got the message of what this particular performance was about, but it was.
So observe, continue. So he's deep throating pickles.
Yeah. So there's some pickle stuff. The beads are out at this point. There may have been a pickle to replace. And anyway, so
replace the beads.
I can't. Yes, I believe
Okay.
so. But anyway, so he stands up, unties the bow, and then the lights, and then it's a blackout.
Oh, okay. So you don't see his pickle.
Oh, you do.
Oh, you do. Oh, okay. I thought that what you were saying was that that's the big reveal at the end, but then they sort of usual suspects it and just cut to black.
Oh, it's yeah.
Okay.
No, you saw it, and then it was black.
Got it.
So.
And what was your review of that performance, JJ?
I didn't get to see it.
Oh, this one you didn't get to see.
No.
Rachel tempted me with this instead. She goes, would you like to go over to this restaurant that was featured on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives that's known for their bacon Manhattan? And I said, yes, please.
That was an amazing place. They had just the best cocktails.
Yeah, and that place closed too.
Yeah.
Did the neighborhood get gentrified? Is that what was happening?
No, actually, and so where the cabaret was, it's a new theater now. And so it's kind of a,
Oh, good. I'm glad it's not going to become, another Taco John's location or something.
Right. Yeah, and not something else to complain about. No, it's a new theater. And actually, that restaurant has had 2 versions. So it's still in existence. It's closed and reopened twice since then. But it's the Town Talk Diner in Minneapolis. And so it has this famous old sign that's been there since like the 50s. Then it turned into Le Town Talk. So it was like a French
Oui.
version. And now it's like Town Talk Diner and Gastropub. So it's just always versions. Got it. Still there.
TTD. You had the great pleasure of accompanying my family on several road trips. And right, I mean, you've crossed. I mean, you've been to Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. You did that trip to Colorado Springs. Weird stuff like that. You and I have been together. One time, Rachel cut her foot open getting into a cab in Chicago, bled all over my apartment.
all over the theater.
But we had so much fun. Do you remember what we saw that night?
No, we didn't see anything.
Right. We didn't. I promised her we were going to go see Spam-A-Lot. We took the cab, we got there, and then we did not get in to see
Was this the
Spam-A-Lot.
initial run?
Yeah. Now, I saw it, so I got to see Tim Curry, Hank Azaria.
Tim Curry was... how long ago was that again?
This is the original Broadway cast.
But I'm trying to remember what year did that...
2005? What year did you graduate from high school?
2004. So it
yes,
would have
it was
been
2005.
Was that the last thing Curry did then in his career?
He's still doing some stuff. He just appeared in the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, really?
For Fox. He has the narrator.
I thought
his stroke has severely limited what he's available to do, but he's still doing some little things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tim Curry. None of us are holding cups, but to Tim Curry.
Yeah, no kidding.
Tim Curry was the best.
Yeah, he's someone I miss seeing because there was a period of time where you would see him in at least 3-4 movies a year, and he was just everywhere. And then he just kind of dropped off the face of the planet. The last thing I remember seeing him in was, it might have been Treasure Island.
Well, Scary Movie 2
I didn't see
come
Scary
out
Movie.
almost a decade later.
I didn't see that. I'm just like the last one that I remember seeing.
Muppets Treasure Island. He and Tim Curry are both two very accomplished actors.
Tim Curry and who?
And Michael Caine.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Did I say Michael Caine?
No. I was talking about Tim Curry.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about Tim Curry and Michael Caine.
Got it. Okay.
Are both incredibly accomplished actors who held their own in Muppet movies by not treating the Muppets as some weird, like, felt with rod puppets, but by treating them like other actors and really owning up to their parts. And they just are wonderful.
Would you think you'd be able to handle it if you were on set of like a Muppet shoot and you got to act with Kermit? And like, do you think you would be able to have the presence of mind to stay in the scene, or would you just
Thank you
lose
for
your
finally
mind?
asking me this question, because I've been waiting for it. I think I could. Here's something about the Muppets. So the Muppets and the Muppet performers have a code, and the code is that when one of the puppets is out, you can't let it just, like, you would never see one like slumped over a chair, because it ruins the integrity of that character. And so they have these trunks, these closed trunks, that when you put up one of the Muppets back, they go into a trunk, and it would be weird to see one of these things lifeless. And so they, they're constantly, so like sometimes, you'll see people having conversations, like the guy who's manipulating Fozzie having a conversation with Fozzie while they're doing that. Or if guests come, like they want to talk to Fozzie, they don't give a root's patoot about the guy who's underneath him. And so I think I could hold my own. My problem is this. People don't realize, but sets on a Muppet movie are wide open. Like, the actual ground is 5 feet below where me as a human would be stepping, because they need to house all of these people in monitors who are holding their arms up. So when you see like Michael Caine walking through a Muppet Christmas Carol, he has a very small, like 2x6 board that he's walking on as he goes across, because on either side of him, it's an open pit where the performers are. And I don't like heights, so that would freak me out.
It's also the best telling of a Christmas Carol,
without a doubt,
ever made. I don't think anyone will ever come close to make
God,
that.
no. It is perfect.
And like the Ghost of Christmas Future
Yet to Come
is so scary. Mm-hmm. I love how he's just this large cloaked thing that points off into the distance.
Originally, it was when they were originally writing it, the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come was going to be Gonzo, and you would just see this hooded figure, but the nose would be coming out. And I think they did a much better job with making Gonzo and Rizzo the narrators, and then that shrouded figure that looks like death but never speaks. And they let the haunting score do the speaking for it. That boom, 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 boom. Good stuff.
I
love the Muppets.
What's the Bill Murray?
Scrooged
is also a classic, but it just, as far as that's a spin on it, whereas the Muppets approached it as like just a straight up telling that just happens to have Muppets as some of the actors in it. And I kind of miss Muppet movies like that because I like the idea of them adapting classic stories and going, well, who would be this character if we were using Muppets into it? So they did it with Treasure Island. They do it with Christmas Carol. I'd like to see some more stories made like that.
I worked for a little bit with another creative person on a telling of the Old Testament with the Muppets. That I think would be pretty decent because there's some good options out there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. So who would be who in that?
That is something that you'll have to wait for a blog or an entire episode dedicated to the Muppets. They're doing a really neat thing now where there's a documentary that came out called Muppet Guys Talking, and it's all the most famous Muppeteers, and it's not just men because Fran Brill is there as well, getting around and telling stories. And so they made a documentary that's about an hour and a half long, but then they had hours and hours and hours and hours of extra footage that they're just putting online to people who buy the documentary. It has been like a dream come true for a Muppet fan.
I know we've talked about it, I think, on this podcast before, but Rachel, have you seen the Big Bird documentary? I Am Big Bird, the Carol Spinney story.
Yes.
You see, I am such a huge fan now of documentaries made off of Muppet stuff because that exact fact that there is so much archival material that you can tell these really grandiose stories. And one thing that when documentaries fail is if they don't have enough visual footage that's not just people sitting and being interviewed. You know, the less you can see people talking and sitting and being a talking head. But that movie's so good because of the just vast amount of archival stuff that Carol Spinney and his wife shot behind the scenes of that. I absolutely love that doc. Are there any other docs based off of... I guess there's the Elmo one,
Being
right?
Elmo, which, of course, Kevin Clash has had some accusations, and he's left the Muppet world because of that. That being said, there's a moment where a Make-A-Wish child comes to visit the Sesame Street set, and Elmo meets this little girl that wants to meet Elmo, and Kevin Clash stays in character as Elmo the whole time, and afterwards the family's walking away and someone hands Kevin Clash this gift set for this little kid, and so he kind of runs after him and he taps the dad on the shoulder to hand him this gift set, and the dad turns around and he's got tears in his eyes and he just hugs Kevin Clash so hard because he got to see his child smile and to be so excited. And he talks about how he did a ton of that stuff with Elmo, and when you create a character that becomes so beloved like that, to not be jaded, the way Carol Spinney is not jaded about Big Bird. Yeah. In fact, one of my all-time favorite stories is Big Bird is set to be on Mr. Rogers. And so Fred Rogers welcomes Carol Spinney in, and they're kind of saying, okay, so you're going to come in the front door, and then, I'll talk to Big Bird, and then we'll take the top off, and you can show the kids how everything works inside of here, and, where the monitor is. And Carol Spinney goes, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm not going to ruin the illusion of Big Bird for millions of children out there. And Fred Rogers looks at him and says, I can't lie to children and tell them that Big Bird is real because my show is based on honesty with children and not placating to this idea that children are stupid. And so it was two giants of children's television who have just the best intention in process of thought for children who, end up at this impasse, and they came up with a brilliant idea of like, well, why doesn't Big Bird appear in the land of make-believe where it's make-believe, it's full of puppets. And I love that story. I love both of those guys. I can't wait for that Fred Rogers documentary. Looks so good.
I bet though that conversation where they confronted that impasse was like one of the nicest, most polite conversations you probably would have ever heard.
It was full of respect, where each of them says, gosh, I really respect what you're doing, and I totally understand 100% where you're coming from.
Yeah. Carol Spinney also played Oscar the Grouch.
I bet the conversation was just the opposite.
Think they duked it out?
Yeah, like real harsh. Some language used that you couldn't repeat.
Carol Spinney walks in and Rogers goes, I hear you're talking shit.
You big turkey.
Not a lot of people realize too that Kevin Clash played the voice of Splinter in the first Turtles movie as well.
He was also
He's
the
the
voice
puppeteer as Splinter.
of the baby in Dinosaurs. I'm the baby, gotta love me.
Right. That's right. What a pop culture milestone the Dinosaur Show was. I loved that show, especially the very end of it when Fred Sinclair?
Earl Sinclair.
Earl Sinclair basically destroys their lives because he drops bombs into a volcano to make rain clouds.
Yes, I just rewatched that recently.
The finale of that show is Extinction.
Yes. No, there's more after that because it took me a while to find that episode, but they did like 3 episodes after.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
Isn't it? I thought the end of it was them kind of holding each other and looking.
That might have been the last aired episode. I'm not sure, but I know in the, whatever season episode, there are ones after that. So
Interesting.
Do you remember the one when Robbie takes steroids?
Yeah.
No.
And steroids are little spiky animals that you eat.
And they give you spikes.
They give you spikes, and he got really muscular. I think he wanted to compete in sports or something. I can't remember what
Or
it was.
get a girl.
Get a girl. It might have been. I think it was get a girl because then he gets violent with her. He goes into a roid rage at one point and has to sort of run off into the woods. And then I remember this was when the very, the anti-drug crusading was on TV all the time. And every kid's show there was a don't do drugs thing, and there was on every arcade game there was a don't do drugs thing. So this was the Dinosaurs version of that, and they end it with Robbie breaking the fourth wall and talking to the audience. And what they do is they finish the last scene in the episode, and the camera pulls back to show that they're actually on a TV set, but all of the other camera operators, they're all dinosaurs. So they like the director and everyone has a dinosaur costume. So the reality of the Dinosaurs show is that it is a sitcom that takes place that was filmed during the dinosaurs' time, and we're actually watching the sitcom that all the dinosaurs in that world actually watch.
I friggin' love that. I also love the inside jokes that the Muppeteers used to use, like the name of the head broadcaster that they would watch on the news. It was like Harold Hand Up Me. But Rachel is now texting. Or Pinteresting. We've lost Rachel as a guest.
I think she's Googling dinosaurs, though.
She's busy.
I was, just to make sure that it was accurate, that it wasn't the actual last episode. The
Could
other
you
ones,
do-
I think,
could
were
you do the
the
theme?
lost episodes. So they weren't chronologically. That was how it ended.
Okay.
They just had like the lost episodes that weren't aired that were technically after.
But chronologically in the story, though, it ends with extinction.
It does.
Okay. Did you ever watch David the Gnome?
I love David the Gnome. That theme song was actually wonderful.
It was like...
Look around you. There are many things to see. I could keep going, but the ending of that show is intense.
Did they die too?
They die. So...
because you only reach a certain age.
You reach a certain age. You reach like a few hundred years old, and then you get to a certain age. But when you die, you turn into a tree. And so what happens is David and his wife and one of their friends, who's just another gnome in the village who's the same age, they realize it's their death day, and they basically crawl to this tall hill out in the valley. And it's so sad because they've told their fox friend, what's his Swift, to it's time for us to go, and he's walking away, and then he decides, no, I have to see them, and he ends up crawling up the side of this hill to witness the last moment. And David and his wife basically say goodbye, like, thank you for being my loving partner, and
give
blah,
each
blah,
other
blah.
the nose kiss.
The nose kisses, and then all three of them turn into trees, and that's the end of the show. And you go,
I feel like for the third gnome, that would be the worst way to go, because you're like third wheeling your way, like...
Hey, can I get a nose rub too? I'm about to turn into a tree here.
I never settled down. Want to be a bachelor gnome. Do you guys remember the Elephant Show with Sharon, Lois, and Bram?
Yes.
Yeah, the finale of that show was heartbreaking, where the elephant gets taken and put into a circus, and
What?
and Lois turns out to be addicted to crank.
Doesn't Elf return to his home planet at the end?
No, he does not. The finale of Elf is him being captured by the government.
Oh, yeah.
And then, like, years later, they made a made-for-TV movie where he breaks out of the facility.
Okay.
But it came too late. Way too late.
What do you mean? Like,
Because-
in the time, or just for us to care?
for us to care, because to many people the movie ended with Alf being captured and probably dissected.
And I'm guessing that's because they didn't realize they were going to get canceled.
Right.
So there was more story to come after that.
And they had an animated series that took place on Melmac.
I just remember every day after school, it was Ninja Turtles and then Elf.
Hey, Willie, where's your cat? And then Elf had a talk show for a while that didn't make sense to me at all.
Elf is back in Pog form.
Our guest today has been Rachel Hoffman of Hoffman, and Hoffman. It's a split personality law firm where, depending on what wig she's wearing, one specializes in civil court, one specializes in maritime court, which has to deal with boats, and one specializes in the
night court.
Yeah, the night court things.
It's just a bailiff.
Rachel, do you have anything that you want to tell the listeners of JJ Meets World before you leave?
No, it's been a thrill, guys.
Has it?
Yes. It's a beautiful day outside, but I would much prefer to be inside drinking hot chocolate with you guys.
Well, that was very thick of sarcasm.
If you don't know Rachel, you just sort of assume that she's half asleep all the time, but she's not. This is
Rachel,
actually this is high energy for Rachel today.
Yeah, this is big time. If you see Rachel around the Fargo-Moorhead area, you're going to identify her by her adorable dog, Marty, who wears capes and bow ties. He's quite the little gentleman.
Marty.
He is. He's running a race on Tuesday.
With my dogs.
With your dogs.
And also our friend Phil is bringing his dog.
Your dogs are racing?
Yeah.
You're just getting to race your dog?
It's one dog, the last dog to cross.
It's the Fargo Dog Marathon.
Okay. Interesting.
It's not interesting.
Thank
you for saying that.
But it's adorable.
I'm not telling my dog about it so that she doesn't get upset.
Oh.
So I'm not taking her to that.
If you had to guess which dog was going to win, my two dogs, my poodle, my Wheaton Terrier, or Rachel's Marty.
Well, I've only met Marty once when he was just a little pup, and I've met Neely a number of times, and Neely is high energy.
Yep.
And I've never seen her at a full gallop, but I would assume that she's got. This is a marathon and not a sprint, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really about who's. I just think Neely probably can cover more ground than Marty can.
Correct, but Neely is untrainable. She is the wild horse.
What kind of dog does Phil have?
He's got like a 15-year-old golden retriever.
See, yeah, the age factor comes in there. That's why if I brought Juno, who's a 6-year-old Rottweiler, she'd school all y'all.
Is she named after the movie?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. My little
Is
brother
she named after
her.
the city in Texas?
I don't know. Isn't Juno in Alaska?
There's multiple Junos.
I guess there is.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. For more info, including how you can help us keep the lights on by donating to our Patreon, visit our website, www.jjmeetsworld.com, or you can hit us up on the social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the sites that you beautiful young kids are using today. If you'd like to stay up to date on new episodes of JJ Meets World, don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, or wherever you consume the podcast that you love. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by checking out www.moonbasemaria.com. You can also find out what JJ's up to by going to www.linebenders.com. I think the thing is if we got a power strip that had more than 4 plugins, we'd be able to get to Mars sooner as scientists.